Seat wherever you're comfortable. We'll get started in just a minute. The 132nd annual Vestry Meeting of the Parish of St. Clement, Eglinton is now called to order. I invite Pamela Raymond to offer our opening prayer.
Let us pray. God of hope.
One sec, Pam. Just Mike Kelsley.
God of... Can you hear me? Is this on? All right. It will be on momentarily. Everyone who knows anything about audio is running upstairs. There we go. All right, let us pray. God of hope, we thank you for our community of St. Clement's, for what has been, for what is, and for what is to come. We thank you for the ways you have fashioned us as your people, stretched our imagination, anchored us in hope, and sent us out to grow and to build, to love and to serve. As those learning to follow Jesus, the one who became poor that all might share in his great treasures, may we enter into Christ's generosity of spirit. Receive our offerings of time, talent, and treasure, and make of us a place of invitation and transformation, where all may experience God's love and mercy. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you for joining us this morning. God has given us a vision of transforming lives, a mission of learning to follow Jesus Christ, and a common life whose values are shaped by the fruits of the Holy Spirit. In today's meeting, we will embody these values in the way we engage with one another. In all that we do today, let us remember that God is in the room. The purpose of today's gathering is to ensure that our leadership and finances uphold the vision and mission God has gifted us. At the appointed times for questions and comments from the floor, please approach the microphone, state your name clearly, and comment for no longer than 3 minutes. Come only with new points to the microphone. You will be given a 30-second warning from Neil Zakarowicz. I have appointed Heather Jenkin as our vestry clerk to record today's proceedings. I ask that any reports given or spoken that are not in the already compiled vestry report be passed on to Heather in written form after the meeting. I also ask that any motions be written with the names of the mover and seconder. The parochial tribunal for this year is Carolyn Hellbrenner. Carolyn, can you wave your hand if you're here? At the back. The purpose of the tribunal is to rule on the eligibility of voters. Moved by Andrew Federley and seconded by Bay Riley that Carolyn be elected. All in favor? All opposed? The motion's carried. I've also appointed Susan Joyce and Martha McEachran, if you can wave, as our scrutineers for today's meeting. They will be asked to count the voters if there is a disputed show of hands or ballot. We move now to the acceptance of the minutes of last year's vestry meeting. We will move and approve the minutes of February 26th, 2023. These can be found beginning on page 46 of the vestry report. If your comment is regarding grammar or spelling mistakes, please share those directly with Grace in the church office. Are there any questions or comments regarding the substance of the minutes? Moved by John Swindon and seconded by Leonard Wong to approve the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Thank you. In the spring of 2022, I gathered a renewed stewardship committee to face head-on the opportunities and the challenges facing our parish. This committee has developed and grown to become the Giving for Growth campaign team. The shrewd and strategic leadership of this group has been phenomenal, and I've invited our chair, Ann Brace, to speak to this work and its next steps. Ann, come on up.
Thank you. As Andrew said, I'm Ann Brace. I'm the chair of the Stewardship Committee. You can see the report that's in the Vestry, report we wrote that's in the Vestry book, and it lists the people who are on our committee, and we're very grateful for the work that they've done because they've worked really, really, really hard, but it's nothing compared to the work that's going to be coming down the road in the next few months. So last year, I stood here and I talked to you about the fact that we wanted to do a feasibility study. And we had hired M&M International as fundraising consultants to help us with that. So many of you will have been involved in that. We got really, really strong support from the feasibility study. It came back to us that a very large proportion of the congregation and parishioners are strongly supportive of us going through with a fundraising campaign at this point. So we are going to do that. So now I'm going to talk to you about the campaign that is to come. It's the Giving for Growth campaign. We will be going sort of with a public launch sometime in the next month or so. Based on the feedback that we had from the feasibility study, the campaign focuses on how we can raise money to support the 5 pillars of our strategic plan. So that's enhancing our worship experience, expanding Christian education, deepening relationships with each other, reaching out both within the parish and to the broader community, and of course enhancing and supporting sustainable operations. So those will be the areas that we'll be talking about when we come forward to you. We are also doing this in conjunction and in partnership with the diocese. Sometime in the next year or so, the diocese is going to be doing their own campaign called called Cast the Net. And rather than come back to you again next year, we are partnering with them now. So a portion of our money that we raise will go to them. They are covering off our fundraising fees, which we're thrilled with because that's a huge added bonus for us. And so that will be part of the campaign. What this means is that we will be starting to phone and email every single one of you to see if we can come and sit on your sofas or meet with you in a coffee shop to talk about what the campaign is. The thing that has struck us most, and we've talked about this, as we've started to talk to you about the campaign, is that in and of itself, these meetings are in fact a living of our ministry. As I can see some of you are nodding at me, that the whole process of sitting down and talking to each other is in fact reaching out and deepening relationships. And we're finding why we come here, why we worship, how that, so the fundraising experience in and of itself is about deepening our time together and our ties. So I would ask that when you get the emails and the phone calls, open your hearts, open your homes to us, and we really look forward to carrying on and seeing what happens in the next 6 months or so as we go with what we are. Questions?
Are there any questions for Ann?
Thank you all very much.
We move now to the presentation from our finance team. The scope of this year's budgeting process has been both broad and deep and continues to be the finest process I've been a part of in my career. Led by our Manager of Finance and Administration, Grace Jenkinson, at the computer, and executed by our bookkeeper, Lucy Presott, We will begin by hearing from our treasurer, John Swindon.
Grant Thornton audit the church's financial statement, and their report is on pages 1 and 2 of the financial package. They do not qualify their report, and we call this a clear report. Note also that this report refers to the 5 supplementary schedules on pages 18 to 22, and says their review of these schedules is limited. The audited financial statements are on pages 3 to 5, and I'll remark mostly about page 4, the statement of revenue and expenses. So you might want to turn up page 4. The rules that determine how our statements are prepared for the church are called Generally Accepted Accounting Principles for a not-for-profit organization. And the authority for defining these rules in Canada was given by the Parliament to Canada's Chartered Professional Accountants, CPA. These rules require that total revenues and total expenditures be shown, and that's why on page 4 just has 2 categories, the top category revenues and the bottom category called expenditures. The church has decided that further details are required for the congregation to really understand what is happening. And for that purposes, Schedules 1 to 5 and the green sheets have been prepared, and I will speak to those briefly in the remaining remarks I make. Notice the bottom line on page 4, the left-hand pair of columns, shows a very small deficit for 2023 of $3,500 and a much larger deficit for the year before of $32,500. The detailed footnotes following page 4 give information that may be of interest to some church members, and I will be not going through those in detail today. Please turn up Schedule 1 on page 18, and when you look at that, it has exactly the same numbers on it as were on page 4, except they're on the Schedule 1, it's in 5 categories, but you can see the totals in the 2 pages are exactly the same. So let's look at Schedule 1 and see what happened in 2023. We're concentrating on the left-hand 2 columns, which are called the operating fund. The other pairs of columns to the right are the other major funds that we have. And for each of the other ones to the right, there's a Schedule 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 to show you those details. Well, back to Schedule 1, at the top column, the number of donations has risen to 812,000, an increase over last year of 6.9%. We had budgeted for a 10% increase, but we still think that the increase to achieve is considerable. Thank you to the congregation for a very good result there. Another revenue item is in the 3rd main category. It's for the lease of our facilities, and that was $430,500. That was an increase of $48,000 over the previous year. Investment income received in 2023 increased to $84,000, an increase of $12,000 over the previous year. This is a benefit to us as a result of prudent financial policies of past congregations. Property expenditures decreased by $25,000 in 2023, a most remarkable result, and a pleasant surprise not often occurring in this account. Unbudgeted fundraising costs paid in 2023 were $49,000, of which the diocese will reimburse $34,000, leaving the difference which we absorb in 2023 of $15,000. There is more consulting fees to pay in 2024, but the diocese has said they will reimburse us for those. Unrealized gains on the operating fund managed for us by the diocese increased $16,000 in 2023. This results from marking investments to market value at December 31st each year. Most of the money we have invested is done by the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the diocese, and a small portion of that is for the operating fund. If you look on Schedule 1 across the page on that line, you'll see very much larger mark-to-market increases in the other funds during this year. In total, some $215,000 is the amount that the investments were marked above the cost of them. These few items for the most account for the reduction in the planned deficit from 2023, which was $18,000, to just a small deficit of $3,000. Any way you look at it, these results are very satisfactory in all the circumstances. I'll now turn over to Grace and Lucy to present the budget for 2024.
Thank you, John. Lucy and I have been tasked this morning with presenting the key aspects of the 2024 operating budget. In John's presentation, he provided an overview of our financial results for the 2023 year. It is these results that you will see form the basis for our proposed 2024 budget. As in prior years, we received input from our church leadership, primarily our clergy and wardens, to strongly assess our successes in 2023. And we used this input to build on those successes in 2024, providing programs and activities that will help inspire the community. We also had to be forward-thinking and creative in what we have to offer. I hope you will find that our budget really does combine, one, what we believe we did well in 2022, and two, some exciting new ideas. We are proposing an operating budget this year that is essentially a break-even budget. To get there, we will need the continued support and generosity of our parishioners. So I am now going to invite Lucy to come forward and walk you through the 2024 budget and what we are proposing in our break-even scenario.
Thank you, Grace, and good morning, everyone. In her opening remarks to our budget presentation, Grace indicated that our 2024 budget builds on the programs and the offerings made in 2023, with some new and, we hope, creative ways to enhance our worship experience. If you take a quick look at your green sheet, you will see that the budgeted numbers are essentially presented in three categories. We refer to the first category as church operations, and really it encompasses all of the activities that we do as a place of worship and the worship experience itself. The second category is called facilities, and that includes both the revenues and the costs that are associated with the church building and some of our other real estate properties. And the third category is investment income, and that category encompasses the financial implications of our existing cash reserves and our investments. So today we're going to present our budget through the view of these three pillars, not to be confused with the 5 pillars that Anne spoke about, but our 3 different categories. We'll start with church operations and work from the bottom up. So let's start with reviewing expected costs to carry out the activities that are part of the worship experience. Overall, we're budgeting costs in 2024 of approximately $1 million. This compares with $975,000 that we incurred in 2023. And on initial review, it seems to be a marginal increase of about 3%. However, you may notice that the 2023 numbers include fundraising costs that John spoke about. Those were about $50,000. And you have subsequently heard from both Anne and John that fundraising costs in 2024 will be borne by the diocese. So to better compare the costs of 2024 to 2023, we really should exclude the effect of fundraising costs. And when you do that, the increase in our costs budget to 2023 is approximately 9%. Inflation itself accounts for about 3.5% of the increase. But that's not all there is to it. So allow me to highlight some of the new or newer activities that we're proposing for 2024 and that contribute to the rest of the increase that you see. Driven primarily by the vision of our clergy and our wardens, our 2024 budget incorporates the costs of expanding various programs and activities that we offer through the parish. In recent weeks, you have all been introduced to Michael Buttrey, our new digital pastor. And as we extend beyond the bricks and mortar of the building and reach out further to our online community, we believe that Michael's role will truly be transformative, not only to our parish, but potentially to the larger church. Our nursery, children, and youth programs will also have some significant changes in 2024, as Mackenzie and Claudia, who have both done so much to advance these ministries, will be on maternity leave. With the oversight of Reverend Pam, we're recruiting for 2 new individuals that will initially cover the maternity leaves on a contract and part-time basis. Pam is hopeful that the talents of our new incumbents will allow us to reach out and extend our ministerial programs to young adults as well. OMG Tuesdays, small groups, hospitality services, getting connected. These are all programs that will continue throughout 2024, and we intend to complement them with additional educational and social programs. We recently launched the Start the Conversation series, which provides an opportunity to reflect on end-of-life considerations within our Christian faith. In the spring, we anticipate launching a new educational series called Baptismal Journey, providing an opportunity to further explore faith formation and for those that may be interested to potentially explore adult baptism. We are also keenly aware of the needs of our seniors and our 2024 budget includes opportunities for us to connect or sometimes to reconnect with those that are finding it more difficult to attend our Sunday services. In addition to our operating costs, every year, a portion of certain donations that are made to our church are remitted back to the diocese. And we call this the diocesan allotment or the diocesan assessment. Together with other parishes, these monies enable the diocese to carry out its own ministry, both here in Toronto and ultimately the global church. In return, as a parish, we benefit from the ministry provided by the diocese as it supports our own work through things like clergy and lay formation, pastoral leadership, and by providing access to expert administrative, communications, and legal support. In 2024, our allotment will be $216,000, but it will be partially offset by certain support payments granted by the diocese, including the support that it has agreed to provide for our digital pastor and all of his programs. Now, I appreciate that we have not discussed the effect of donation revenues in church operations, but please allow me to move on to the facilities and investment income pillars for a moment, and we'll come back to discussing donation revenues and tying all of these numbers together. Just a qualifying comment on our facilities budget for 2024. We undoubtedly have a very beautiful church in truly an enviable part of Toronto, but it's not without substantial costs for continued repair and for capital improvements. And we've spent a considerable amount of time in 2023 to identify what we need to undertake to repair and maintain these premises. Many of those projects will be undertaken as part of the Giving for Growth campaign, which was discussed by Anne at the onset of this meeting. So as we discuss the budget, and specifically the facilities budget for 2024, it's important to note that those costs are not included in this budget. What you see in the facilities budget for 2024 are the costs that are required for ongoing use of the premises in the current year. So let's take a quick look at those costs. Our 2024 budget for the maintenance of properties is $270,000, an increase from the $255,000 incurred in 2023. The increase is very much driven by outside pressures, such as the market price for utilities, as well as the well-loved recent announcements of the 9.5% increase in property taxes in the City of Toronto. That was supposed to be a joke, but we've built a certain amount of maintenance and repair contingencies in our budget because, as you can imagine, it's sometimes difficult to predict with any certainty what repair issues may surface. In 2023, in an effort to find sustainability in the operations of the parish, we made a concentrated effort to increase our revenues through the rental of our premises. And this was done essentially in two parts. The first was to renegotiate rental rates with our existing tenants to better reflect true market rates for rental properties in this area. We supplemented that with soliciting additional renters, and we'll continue to do that in 2024. So you'll see a marked improvement in rental income as we go from 2022 into 2023, where we earned $430,000, and we believe that additional improvements that we see in 2024 will permit us to project rental revenues of $490,000 in 2024. So in our 2004 facilities budget, on a net basis, we'll have contributions of about $220,000, all of which can be used to help us support our operations. The third financial pillar that we talked about was investment income. Wherever possible, we've invested our financial resources with the purpose of generating income, while always obviously protecting capital. Our investments, including the various endowment funds that we've collected so often from those that came before us, will generate about $85,000 in 2024. So let's take a moment to pull all of that together. We said that our church worship experience costs are budgeted at just over $1 million. In addition, we have diocesan assessment costs, which on a net basis add a further $179,000. To cover those costs, we indicated that we have net revenues from our facilities management of $220,000. And finally, we should add the effect of the $85,000 of investment income that we'll earn from our cash resources. Clearly, this leaves us with a shortfall of $884,000. To break even in our operating budget, this is the amount that we're seeking to raise through donations from our membership. While as a team, we have reasonable confidence that we can predict and to a certain extent control our operating costs, it's inherently very difficult for us to predict with any certainty the generosity of our membership. Determining the right amount of donation revenue to include in our budget for 2024 was, in all honesty, the most difficult part of formulating our budget. We actually looked at two scenarios. In our first scenario, we considered what our operating results would be if our membership contributed in 2024 the exact same amount that they contributed in 2023. So we looked at what our results would be if donations were at par. The scenario is illustrated for you here, and as you can see, the results would be a deficit of about $52,000. In our second scenario, we considered the amount of donations that we needed in order to essentially break even, and then thought about whether those donations would be feasible within our community. To break even, we must ask our congregants to increase their regular giving in 2024 by 6.5% compared to their donations in 2003. We believe that after a careful review of the projects and activities that we're proposing for 2024, our congregants will agree that this is the best scenario. Therefore, we're putting forth the balanced budget option for your consideration and approval at this meeting. With that, I think we've concluded the presentation of the budget for 2024, and I think I can open the floor for any budget-related questions before we turn it over to the formal part of the meeting.
Any questions? I invite you to come up to the microphone and state your name for us. Seeing none, I'd like to invite John back to the microphone. He's going to present 3 motions in turn, each of which is to be voted on separately by our congregation.
With respect to auditors next year, I move that it be resolved, with respect to the 2003 financial statements, I move that it be resolved that the audited financial statements for 2023 be accepted as presented.
That's moved by John Swindon and seconded by Catherine Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried.
The second motion concerns our auditors, Grant Thornton. I move that it be resolved that Grant Thornton be appointed auditors of St. Clement's Church for 2024 with remuneration to them to be determined by the wardens.
That's moved by John Swindon, seconded by Neil Zakarowicz. All in favor? All opposed? The motion is carried.
The last motion concerns the 2024 budget. I move that it be resolved that the budget for 2024 be accepted as presented.
That's moved by John Swindon, seconded by Bay Riley. All in favor? All opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. John, Grace, Lucy, thank you so much. Our annual Vestry report featured thoughtful reflections from each of our strategic plan chairs, including our wardens, who take the lead for the sustainable operations of our parish. I now call upon Rector's Warden Bay Riley and People's Warden Catherine Nicholson to give their report.
Good morning. I'm Bay Riley, and Catherine Nicholson will speak right after me. I'm going to speak to the growth of our community and the gifts of our clergy. We all must be so proud that we are growing. We are actually growing, which is a wonderful story. Our attendance is up, for regular attendance, is up 12%. You can see these numbers on pages 18 and 19 of the Vestry report. Christmas, for those of you who are here, was packed. And it was just so wonderful after years of, I think we could call it emptiness, to see a full house with children running around and some chaos. And it just was amazing. And I'm so happy for our clergy to see the fruits of their labor, and proud of them. We all know that our clergy are gifted, and now they've been officially recognized as such. Andrew Federley's been installed as a canon, and Pam has been, I want to use the right language, appointed as associate rector. So this is great that we all know they're amazing, and now that's officially recognized in the diocese. Especially in this day and age, people ask me, why do you go to church? And there's lots of reasons. I could say, well, my family's been coming here for 90 years or so, but I've come and gone and been in and out over the years. But why do I come to church? First, for the community. I love seeing old friends. Just today, I was chatting with people from my neighbors from 50 years ago. And I love that. So old friends and then making new friends. I think it's important for all of us to always have the mindset that we can make new friends our whole lives. So I come for the community and I stay for the clergy. So the clergy, I feel they're exceptional. And the number one, and we this is supported by data too, it's not just me, but the quality of sermons. So I think we learn something every sermon from each person who preaches here, and that's amazing. So exceptional clergy, amazing sermons. They bring intellectual rigor, connect the gospel to real life, which is difficult to do, and they do this with humor and with warmth and wisdom. So we feel very lucky. Thank you, and over to Catherine.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on which, we're still in the morning. And I'm here really just to provide a little color on what goes on behind the scenes at the warden's table, as you saw in our report. And that's really to talk about the sustainable operations. You heard this morning from John, Lucy, and Grace the proposed plans and our results from last year. We, the wardens, were thrilled with the results last year. I'm very grateful for all your generosity. And with the budget we put together that you've approved, it was really looking at our growing community, looking at our increasing rental revenues, and also a very close look at expenses to put forward that budget. So thank you for supporting it. We do really believe that in the short term and the long term, this is in the interests of our very special community. And we're excited for the financial campaign as a way of strengthening our financial position so that we can continue to grow and provide a very special place in the community for people to worship. Thank you.
Just before they have a seat, yes. Are there any questions for the wardens about their oral or written reports? May I have a mover and seconder for a motion to receive the warden's report? That's moved by Pamela Raymond, seconded by John Swindon. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, Catherine and Bay. We move now to the acceptance of all the written reports from our annual Vestry report. Are there any questions to individual writers of reports? Yes, is that Margie? Come on up to the microphone. Thank you.
Margie Piccini. I think this is meant for you too, but I missed it. So, okay. So you used the term strategic plan, and I am going to be coming to some families and supporting the capital campaign. Please be kind. Okay, so and I had wonderful training, but in that training it mentioned that our last strategic plan was, I believe, in 2017 maybe, when the pillars were established, and that seems, from a professional point of view, a long time since a strategic plan was undertaken. So I'm just wondering if you could comment on whether the church has a vision for a strategic plan, or whether what they're working on is what they see as the strategic plan.
Thank you very much, Margie. Just to clarify some of the timelines, we probably started the deep listening process of our strategic plan. We probably started that process in about 2017. We launched our strategic plan having real confidence that we got in the pulse of the community and really talked to everybody and tried to reflect back the mission and the vision and values. And that's where we really clarified the mission as learning to follow Jesus Christ, the values as the fruits of the Spirit, and the vision as transforming lives. We launched that to great fanfare on this very Vestry Sunday, 3 weeks before the pandemic. So we felt that we had done that deep listening, and I've said this in a number of the conversations that I've been having with folks lately. When the pandemic hit and we shut down services on March 15th, 2020, we obviously had to pivot and recreate ourselves and do all that along with the rest of the world. What we didn't have to do is figure out who we are. So what I like to say is that we were extremely clear on the who we're about. We're learning to follow Jesus. And then it was the how, it was the tactical that had to roll out differently. For instance, now we're all online and not in person. So Margie, I hear you about, is something that launched in 2019 stale dated? We don't think so. We think that the elements that are there, particularly our mission of learning to follow Jesus, has really been adopted by the community. What I will say about what's coming forward with the financial campaign is that we're seeing this as the living out of our strategic plan for the next 6 or 7 years. This is how we're going to resource these strategic initiatives in each of those areas.
And Margie, thank you for your question. I think it's a good one. And Andrew, I think your answer was very good in terms of our mission, our values. And so maybe it's reframing how we refer to it so it doesn't feel stale dated. And I understand in terms of sort of professionally, we think of strategic plans every 3 to 5 years, whereas as Andrew describes it, the exercise we went through, I think, is something deeper and longer lasting. And so perhaps it's reframing the actual strategic execution of it, which we are changing through this financial campaign rather than when it was launched in 2019. So I think you've highlighted a good point for us to think about differentiating and making it clearer what we're doing.
Are there any other questions to individual writers at reports? I'd invite you up to the microphone. I have a mover and seconder for a motion to receive the written reports. It's moved by Liska Stefko and seconded by Leonard Wong to receive the written reports. All in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. This is my favorite part. Many people work tirelessly for the mission of this parish. Some of them take on official roles and many unofficial. And I would like to acknowledge several of those groups now. I'd ask you to hold your applause until the end. Volunteers. Without you, St. Clement's would just be a building, not a community. And I'd like to thank our audiovisual team, small group leaders, Sunday coffee and hospitality teams, OMG Tuesday facilitators, cooks and kitchen helpers, Getting Connected, Start the Conversation, choir members, Chancel Guild, College of Preaching, children and youth volunteers, Sides team, Outreach and Refugee Committee members, Wednesday lunch volunteers, our archivist, Women of Faith, pastoral care team, property committee members, food bank drivers, communion ministers, sacristans, readers, intercessors, stewardship team, office volunteers, and Angel Tree, to name a few. Thank you to everyone who gives to make this place thrive. It's okay, we can clap. I'd like to thank our soloists, our youth choral scholars, and our entire team of musicians and singers who've brought us joy and hope. To our strategic plan chairs, you have helped bring to life our mission of learning to follow Jesus Christ. I owe a debt of gratitude to the following chairs of our strategic opportunities. Catherine Nicholson, deepening relationships with one another, and Susan Colacidi for reaching out. I'd like to thank Pat Crawford of the Worship Experience, and I'm excited to announce that she'll be joined by co-chair Richard Austin to lead us forward. Finally, I'd like to thank Klaus and Heather Lank, who I found out this morning are on a ship somewhere, and because no one else was leading prayer, they stepped in to lead worship. So we've had church at home. We now have church on a ship as part of the St. Clement's experience. Klaus and Heather have chaired our engagement through Christian education. I'm thrilled to announce that they'll be passing the baton to new co-chairs, Catherine and Paul Hicks. Let's give our thanks to these strategic plan chairs. our staff. We are incredibly blessed with a phenomenal staff team with whom I have the privilege of working every single day. Thank you for your trust, good humor, and excellence in helping to chart a way forward for our entire community. I'd ask you to please stand and remain standing when I call your name. Grace Jenkinson, Lucy Presott, and Ariel Brooks. Kelsley Campbell up in the gallery, and Apurva Prajapati. Mackenzie Wolf and Claudia Kajuma, probably with our kids. Oh, they're great. Yeah. Michael Buttry, Daniel Webb, Liska Stefko, and Pamela Raymond. Dan, if you're, oh good, you're there. I'd like to also thank our honorary assistant, Mary Lewis. Please join me in thanking this incredible group of parish leaders. I have one special announcement to make that I'm particularly excited about. For nearly 5 years, I've had the privilege of working side by side with two of the finest priests in the country, Liska Stefko and Pamela Raymond. Across the diocese, our clergy team is unique in learning and leading from a place of shared leadership, mutuality, and respect. This fellowship of three has been transformative for the three of us personally, for our parish, and over the past few years, others in the wider church have begun to notice how we do things differently. In April 2022, we were invited, the three of us, to address the recent cohort of new ordinands to the priesthood on the topic of leading and building teams. In November 2023, I was named a canon because of our innovative and creative understanding of shared ministry leadership in parish teams. And as another stepping stone on this journey, I'm thrilled to announce that the diocesan bishop has appointed Pamela to a new leadership role at St. Clement's associate rector. Quite organically, over the past 18 months, Pam has stepped into greater leadership responsibility at St. Clement's, including joining our warden's table and offering high-level strategic and tactical leadership to our parish. Pam's new title, the first of its kind in the diocese, reflects the skilled and dynamic team we are blessed to have at St. Clement's. The title also reflects the way the three of us have been leading for some time now. Would you please join me in congratulating Pam? You stand. I would like to thank our wardens, Catherine Nicholson, Bay Riley, Leonard Wong, Neil Zakarowicz, and Janine White for their often hidden and holy work. The shared ministry of this team has made transformation possible. Our entire wardens team extends its thanks to Janine White, our past people's warden. She has been a tremendous contributor to our warden's table and indeed our common life. Janine has completed her term. We're incredibly grateful to her for her leadership and helping to anchor our community. We send her off with our blessing as we wait to welcome new faces around our table in 2024. Thank you, Janine. Finally, and personally, I'd like to thank my family who probably at this point are at home. I just couldn't even begin to do what I do without my wife, Marcia, and my kids, Samuel and Rose. I want to thank them for all they do to support me, for the prayers they sent me out the door with. And as I often say, if you're seeing me here, they're not. And in priestly life, that's a lot. And I want to thank them for their incredible support. I often give thanks to God that my wife also has a ministry background. We met in seminary, and so she understands what ministry looks like, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I want to thank all three of them for their incredible support, not only of me, but of this place and of our community. Thanks all. As officers leave, we have searched diligently to find new ones, and the bios and the photos for these positions and more have been highlighted this week in our Friday community email and on our website. You can also grab one in the anchor today. I'd like to ask each warden to stand when I call your name. I'll begin this section of the proceedings by appointing Neil Zakarowicz as my rector's warden. I'm also pleased to appoint Astrid Fernandez as my deputy rector's warden. And for past rector's warden, I appoint Bay Riley. Thanks to all of you. We have before us a slate of nominees for People's Warden, Deputy People's Warden, Past People's Warden, and lay delegates to Synod. Are there any other nominations? May I have a mover and seconder for the closing of nominations? Moved by Linda Sparling, seconded by Bob Beckner. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. We proceed with the election of our People's Warden, Leonard Wong. May I have a mover and seconder for the election of Leonard Wong as People's Warden? Moved by Susan Colachidi, seconded by Pat Crawford. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Congratulations, Leonard. Welcome. We now have the election of our other wardens. I am grateful to Nancy Hood for allowing her name to stand for election as Deputy People's Warden. May I have a mover and seconder for the election of Nancy Hood as Deputy People's Warden? Moved by Margie Piccini, seconded by Michael Anderson. Is there any discussion? All in favor? We'll get to clap. Hold on. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Welcome, Nancy. Finally, we turn to Catherine Nicholson, who stands for election as past People's Warden. May I have a mover and seconder for the election of Catherine Nicholson as past People's Warden? Moved by Amanda Ricketts, seconded by Barbara English. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Welcome back, Catherine. Is John here? Just checking if John is still in the room. Great, okay. John Swindon has served as St. Clement's treasurer for the past 2 years. I have been so grateful for his excellent accounting knowledge, risk management experience, and high-level leadership. We have been in good hands. John is stepping down from the treasurer position at this vestry. John, we are so appreciative of your work and the wisdom you provided around our wardens and stewardship tables. Thank you, and we wish you all the best. We are very fortunate to welcome Margie Martin into the role of treasurer. Margie has served and provided excellent leadership as treasurer of the Outreach Committee for the past several years. Margie, if you're here, can you stand up for us? There you are. We welcome you into this new role and truly look forward to working with you. Thank you so much. Parish Council meets quarterly to advise the rector and wardens on important matters pertaining to the future health and vitality of the parish. Its membership consists of the rector, wardens, treasurers, chairs of the chairs and staff from each of our strategic plan opportunities, and lay delegates to synod. In our Anglican context, synod is the gathering of lay and clergy members who constitute the governing body of the church. I'd like to acknowledge and thank our lay delegates to synod who have offered themselves to the wider church in this capacity. Zexia, would you stand? Zexia Hilton is stepping down from her role as lay delegate to synod, and I'd like to thank you so much for your faithful service. Our slate of delegates for this year includes Kieran Ganakar, Ehsan Hamatzadeh, Matthew Hicks, and Westmore Smith, with Paul Nielsen as our alternate. May I have a mover and seconder for their election as our lay delegates to synod? I say, is there any discussion? I don't know if that's supposed to come first or not. We'll do this first. A mover, so moved by Zexia Hilton, seconded by Nancy Hood. Is there any discussion? I'm absolutely thrilled at this team stepping into the role and returning. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Congratulations all. Thank you, lay delegates. I'd now like to invite Chair of Outreach, Susan Colacidi, to present this year's Diocesan Social Justice Motion.
Thank you, Andrew. For well over a decade, our Diocesan Social Justice and Advocacy Committee, with the approval of the College of Bishops, has put forward an annual motion on a pressing social justice issue for consideration by parishes. This year's social justice vestry motion calls for government to do more to ensure the provision of safe and secure housing. A critical component of human dignity is having a safe place to call home, so much so that international human rights law, and specifically in Canadian law, the National Housing Strategy Act of 2019, recognizes this. The right for housing has three key aspects: affordability, secure of tenure, and habitability. And unfortunately, for a growing number of tenants in Canada, realizing this right is getting progressively more difficult. Renters make up more than 30% of Ontario's population and more than half of the population of Toronto. Rental costs are rising far faster than inflation or wage increases, with a greater number of tenants paying an increasing portion of their incomes on housing costs. Even tenants in rent-controlled units face pressures such as back-to-back above guideline increases, reduced habitability, harassment, or being displaced by redevelopment. The effects can be seen all around our diocese and beyond. Many people living with housing insecurity, struggling to hang on to the housing they have, and some ultimately being pushed into homelessness. By supporting this motion, St. Clement's will be joining with other parishes to strengthen the bishop's voice in advocacy with the government that people of faith are concerned about the housing situation in Ontario, and in particular, our Diocese of Toronto. As chair of the Outreach Committee, I move that we, the parish of St. Clement Eglinton, call on all levels of government to take meaningful measures to protect and advance the human right to housing, including working together to increase the supply of affordable housing to provide safe and secure homes for all, including those who live with housing insecurity, and developing substantive policies and programs to promote this objective at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels.
Is there any discussion? Moved by Susan Colacidi, seconded by Linda Sparling. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Outreach Committee. Is there any other business that members wish to bring forward for consideration? I'd like to invite Liska Stefko to offer our closing prayer. As we are able, I would invite us to stand.
Let us pray. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is discord, union. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Grant that we may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
I invite you to remain standing for our closing hymn. I declare that the 132nd Vestry Meeting of the Parish of St. Clement, Eglinton is adjourned. Thank you for your attendance and participation. Go in peace to keep a holy Lent. Thanks be to God.